Now, we have joked in previous episodes how when we started in HR, we had no idea of some of the shit we were going to have to see, pun intended shit, literal, figurative shit, right? Oh gosh, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into or the things we'd see, because these are things, a lot of things that people do not talk about. Have you ever done some like hardcore investigation where you felt like you were doing spy shit?
Hell yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I had a Mission Impossible type of experience, like doing something as an HR exec I never thought I would do, right? So I can talk about this. I'm just letting you know, legal. I'm looking at legal here, the person with the legal background. I can talk about this, although, of course, I'll protect people. But I had the experience where I was supporting a CEO who unfortunately was suffering with alcoholism and substance abuse, right, in the workplace. And so many people, myself included, had suspicions that he was drinking at work. But that is such a hard thing to prove. It really is, right? I mean, because here's the head guy, and there's nobody else. You're on an island, and how do you move forward with that? How do you begin to investigate something like that? It takes a lot of bravery and courage sometimes to investigate tough things. But I had gotten the suspicion that perhaps he was drinking during a certain meeting each day. And so all Mission Impossible shit, he had left his drink on the conference room table or the board meeting table. And I took it and I drove an hour to a lab to have it investigated. Like, how crazy is that shit? And I never thought I'd do that, but for his safety, our safety, and he was someone where, what's it called? It escapes me, but they're functional. Like, they're very, very functional.
Functional alcoholic.
Yeah, functional.
Yeah, and there's no background. There's no background or anything in a record. There's nothing, right? But you see that something's not quite right. And he's losing credibility with the people, and his health is something's not right. So the lab came back, and it was mouthwash and coffee. And so he had been ingesting and chugging mouthwash, right? So I had to remove him from the site, and I had to, with gloves, go through his office, like knocking on the floor, seeing if there's, trap door sort of shit. Like, I'm talking every inch of the office and into his closet where there was just tons of mouthwash. And so that's what he was doing to be able to drink at work. And I just, when I was getting into HR, again, so innocent with so much hope, I just had no idea that I would be reading like scientific reports on nasty, like fluid, like nasty ass fluid, right? And sniffing cups and on my hands and knees, searching a CEO's office for whatever, right? I mean, oh boy. That was a doozy, but we made it through. But again, it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Well, and then the question is, there's two issues. One is the employment, which I assume that ended.
Yes.
But then also, when you have those leaders at the top, it's who makes that decision. And generally, we've said HR does not tend to make decisions. You make recommendations or things like that, but someone else has to make that decision. And there's very few people when it's at the top. And then the other aspect that you can't control is you can control employment, sure. You cannot control what that person does. And so such a sad situation that decision leads to job loss. But then also you want those people to get help.
Yep.
But there's such little that you can do. Generally cannot force them into that. And so it just ends up being so sad, and you just have to hope that is their bottom.
Exactly. And you wish that, gosh, we wish they would have disclosed or come to us but that did not happen. In fact, there was no recognition that there was an issue or problem, so sometimes you have to wish people the best, care for them as much as you can, but you also need to care for the employment of everybody else as well, and make sure that the business stays in business and is people are safe, even just in their own parking lot. We owe that as a business, that people can come to work and go home in the same manner in one piece, that they walked in the morning, So it's tough making decisions like that. And you and your own employment feels like it could be in jeopardy as well, doing something like that. And sometimes it absolutely is, right? But that was tough. And that took a while. None of those things are easy. And I love what Ashley shared there, that we make suggestions, we use data, we do investigations as HR. It's very rare that we're the sole decision maker on anyone's termination. And so here, the head guy that would make a lot of those decisions, what the hell do you do, right? Oh, you work through it.
If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One thing I love about Indeed is it makes the hiring process easy by having it all in one place. I can direct message with the candidate while looking at their resume, even schedule an interview. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use it, the better Indeed gets. Join the more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibilities at Indeed.com/HRBesties. Just go to Indeed.com/HRBesties right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on our podcast. Indeed.com/HRBesties. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Are you a professional pillow fighter? Or a 9-to-5 low-cost time travel agent? Or maybe real estate sales on Mars is your profession? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, however complex or intricate, Monday.com can help you organize, orchestrate, and make it more efficient. Monday.com is the one centralized platform for everything work-related. And with Monday.com, work is just easier. Monday.com. For whatever you run. Go to Monday.com to learn more.
Well, on that somber note, oh gosh, let's transition, shall we? Meeting agenda, as always. Cringe Corporate Speak comes first, and Jamie is up at bat for that today. And then we will shift into, guess what? All things investigations. So maybe I shared that story on purpose. So our meeting hot topic today is all things investigations. Investigations 101. We'll talk a little bit about why they're painful. We kind of just did in the water cooler talk. Talk about how they're a necessary evil. But yet we, business leaders and HR leaders, can make it a better experience. So we'll certainly share some of our best practices. Jamie, what do you got?
Ducks in a row.
Oh, quack, quack.
So it's definitely cute.
It is.
It's cute.
It's still a little cringy, though, when I hear it. When you hear like a grown man say, let's get our ducks in a row.
I'm like, oh.
You think of little ones waddling around. Oh, this one keeps going in circles. Come on, you.
This is definitely a palate cleanser.
Yeah, I feel
from our water cooler talk. But Ashley, I think you said you brought up the origins of it.
Yeah, when we were talking about this, you were talking before the meeting, so of course I was on my phone looking up other things.
Of course.
But the origin does date back to the late 19th century, when it was used in the world of fairground shooting galleries. Was the main origin. And some other people have said, it's also like a mama duck leading their ducks. But I love those fairground shooting galleries, because I like the ones now, not with I guess, not with those things, but bullets, but with water, where you do, because being from Kentucky,
Yes.
I like the ones that are a horse race. And, it's 2 or more people, and you're always looking for more people to join at the fair, because then your prize will be bigger when you win, if you win, when you win. And so I love those games, but I liked that origin.
Oh, that is cute. And I can see it, right? Like the image is there. So the cute little ducks. And at least this cringe corporate speak is precious.
Yes.
It is
Yeah,
fresh. It's cute.
And I definitely used it.
Yeah. Let's get our ducks in a row,
Definitely.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get our shit together.
People give you that advice if you're speaking, and they say, imagine people in their underwear. That's never worked for me whatsoever. It just makes me giggle, like, ooh, make a cringe face. But if you imagine your leaders saying, let's get their ducks in the row, and like all your leaders playing like Duck, Duck, Goose or something like that, that can humanize. So if you're nervous to talk to the board, or you're anybody at work, your VP, district manager, just imagine them sitting around playing Duck, Duck, Goose, and that can ease the nerves.
Yeah. So we'll allow this one, right? Or no? I mean, this one's cute,
I'm okay with this one.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah. Everyone work this in today if you can. It's cute. Let's get our ducks in a row. Come on, people. Oh, all right. Shifting gears. Meeting hot topic, all things investigations. Maybe we kick off by talking about why they are so painful and difficult, as if the water cooler talk to begin this meeting didn't totally symbolize that in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But thoughts, why are they so tough?
I think it's tough on everybody. For HR total, and we're going to actually put the human perspective in it for a second. But if you're in HR and you're sitting there and you look and you have your daily or weekly list of to-dos, you got so much shit you have to do. All of a sudden an investigation comes in and you're like, oh my God, because frequently, however much time you're budgeting for it to take, it's going to end up taking more. And so that's a hard aspect, because someone's got to be working on it. You're going to have a role, whether you're investigating, whether you're working with an outside investigator, inside person, it's going to take things up, and it needs to take priority. And so it can be really hard to like add to that mental and physical load of everything you have to do. And it's going to be unpleasant, because you're going to be like hearing things that make you uncomfortable, having conversations, managing up, and having those interviews. You may know someone's lying to you. You're trying to like have a face, but also for employees, which can include HR, because HR can have their own concerns at work. It's hard because you're someone that is going and telling something that's happening at work that's so problematic. You don't feel comfortable handling yourself, and that person is likely very afraid. So the person that's coming to you, or you, if you're having to do this, there is such a place of fear of people not believing you, of ultimately nothing happening to that person, and you have to continue working together, and they know that it's you. And so I think the fear is what really grounds it, as far as what I've seen. What about you all?
Well, I always, think about the relationships I have within the office, right? Like, remember, HR professionals are employees too. And so for me, what makes investigations, or back in the day, it's been a while since I've done one, but what makes them so difficult is because I potentially have to go into an office of someone I consider an acquaintance, a trusted peer, and be like, okay, I have to be, HR lead now. Why did you forget your pants? I have to have a sensitive conversation that, again, like Ashley said, could be really uncomfortable, with someone that perhaps I work very closely to, and memories, man, people remember those conversations, and they're like, ooh, it can really affect your relationships, your working relationships with people. So for me, that's what's always made them kind of tough,
Yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable even if you're not necessarily acquaintances, just because sometimes, depending on the level of the investigation, kind of like you stated earlier in your story, Leigh, is just that even if that was just an acquaintance or just your working peer, it was still uncomfy, right? Because that was a problem that person was struggling with, trying to hide. And now we have to talk about it. And now we have to bring it to light. We have to, do an investigation, quote unquote. And I would say, where do you start with an investigation? So what happens first? So typically I would say for me, a lot of people start with red flag words, right? They know what those red flag words, retaliation, harassment. There's like specific words, right? That if you're going to say them to an HR professional, our ears are going to perk up, right? But that doesn't necessarily always say full investigation, right? But that's a lot of times that's where we're going to start, right? And then at that point, we're going to need detailed notes of what you're alleging or the circumstance. And then we're going to need to know who all's involved. Is there witnesses? Who else do I need to speak to? Is there a leader or a manager aware? And then you're going down the rabbit hole of talking to numerous employees. And that might turn into even more because so-and-so is going to mention so-and-so. And the next thing you know, you've gone down another rabbit hole of, 10 or 15 more people. Each of these you're taking meticulous notes. And then you, the HR professional, have to figure out what makes sense, what aligns, what doesn't align, and kind of where we go from here.
Do you ever wish that you had an HR legal bestie in your pocket? 650 is just that. Your trusted, always available ally for your employment law questions, minus the hefty price tag of a lawyer. Compliance may not be your favorite chore in HR, but it's important and it's hard. But 650 is here to make it easy. With 650, managing multi-state HR compliance is a breeze. Their tools help you to understand complex state laws and craft compliant documents effortlessly, but also keep everything up to date automatically. They have a comprehensive "What's the law in this state" library to a 50-state employee handbook builder. 650 turns compliance into convenience. So, HR pros juggling multi-state teams, simplify your compliance today. Visit 650.com/besties. That's SIXFIFTY.com/besties and discover how to stay ahead with 650's seamless solutions.
As parents, we do everything we can to set our kids up for a successful future: academics, sports teams, college admissions. But what about getting started financially when they're out on their own? Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child now that grows with them and helps prepare them for their financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Funds can be used for nearly anything benefiting your child, from tuition and books to summer camps to even after school activities. And when they're adults, they can use the funds for their first car, their home, or even to start a business. It's all online, and setting up an account could take you just 5 minutes. Get started investing with as little as $1 a day, then manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. You can even share your child's unique gifting link with family and friends. So instead of them getting gifts that they'll outgrow for birthdays and special occasions, they can help grow your child's investments instead. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/hrbesties. That's meetfabric.com/hrbesties. Meet MEET fabric.com/hrbesties. This is a paid promotion for the Fabric UGMA product and not investment advisory service. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors, Inc. Custodial services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risks. Terms apply. Learn more at meetfabric.com.
I mean, in the vein of making them better, you guys up for a little lightning round?
Oh, yes.
Some best practices.
Yes, I think thinking about some best practices and what people may not be aware of. And I'd as a lawyer and lawyer in HR, I'd done trainings for often HR. I mean, and people often say, like, who does the investigation? Okay, so let's start with that. Who do you think should do an investigation?
Well, I mean, if it's not against HR, HR.
Not me. Not me. Not it.
Possibly legal. I mean, you may have to get legal tagged in at some point in the process, depending on if there was a keyword used, sexual harassment or whatnot, discrimination.
Yeah, I've always partnered with legal counsel, which has always been great. I've had that luxury, in my career, but the investigations have always been assigned to an HR pro within the business that, depending on what is being alleged, perhaps they have a little distance there. They can be objective. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen at times in organizations will kind of triage it a bit where, like, as lawyer, I've handled ones if they're, certain levels. I like generally investigations done internally rather than externally. Reason is I do think it becomes a thing. It can become a real thing and a swirl when all of a sudden you have this outside investigator coming in, and sometimes it is necessary, especially like I said, if it's within an HR function, or if there's something that's going to need to be reported externally, like if it's one of those, like, the Me Too situations that were so big. I just, having worked in a law firm, the people often I have been assigned to investigate as a junior law firm lawyer, I am much more equipped, having worked for years within organizations, than I was as a junior person. But I do think having someone do it internally can help have those conversations. What do you call it? Do you always call it an investigation or things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. I always have.
Do you have a fancy name?
Yes, actually, I guess I do.
Little look-see. I'm going to have a little look-see.
I'm going to look under the hood here.
Language is powerful, like we talk about in the podcast. And so even things like complaint, I don't always say complaint. And some of this has been through training. And at times I kind of probably was like, oh, you're overthinking this. But I try to bring the lens always of the person who's bringing that up and the person whose employment may be at stake. Both sides. And often the person whose employment may be at stake is that's probably more lawyer me thinking about that. I just want to be mindful that they're not going to come back and be like, you never spoke to me, or this wasn't fair. But so from a language perspective, I generally call it a concern, not a complaint. Complaint just feels like a supervisor compared to like manager or leader. I call it generally review. Like, we're going to look into this. I don't call them witnesses. I'll say like, okay, other people, like who heard these things, who said these things. I don't tend to use and that's from me having been a lawyer. I think when you start using that terminology that feels really formal, it puts people at back. And then also, if nothing happens as a result of it, it feels like the OJ acquittal, where it's like, people are like, I feel like it feels like a court proceeding. And so for me, I've backed off of my legal terminology and tend to use more human language.
I think that's a really good call.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Like, every org has been very formal about it, right? Because it's almost like they want to say, which I don't blame them, like, this is a huge deal. But then to your point, Ashley, that really bites us in the ass when really, well, there was no action to take because there were no findings, and now all the witnesses want feedback, and you make it so formal and legally, just as an internal look-see, that there's lots of expectations around that because of the power of the language. That's a good point. Damn.
And when lawyers do it, there's a thing in the U.S. called the Upjohn warning. And this comes from a Supreme Court case called Upjohn. But you have to actually give a warning. And again, you'll find very formal ones. But basically it means like, hey, I am the lawyer for the organization, not you. And so please know that. And that's when you're talking to witnesses, anybody. And so when you have lawyers as well, it just, again, you're like adding more language to it. And again, it feels like you're like, okay, do I have the right to remain silent?
Exactly. Miranda rights. And
yeah, or people frequently would say, do I need my own lawyer?
Yeah.
And as a lawyer for the organization, you really can't be telling someone, no, you don't. But like they generally don't if you're just like, okay, just having a quick conversation. But it just creates those, that's why I think, so I've actually liked that, and not to take away from the seriousness of it. And when there are more serious things, I tend to escalate it. But often it's like a concern, not a complaint, and those things. Okay, what is the first, if someone raises a concern or complaint, what is the first thing that they should hear?
You're fucking crazy.
The first thing the concerned party should hear?
Jamie.
Well, let's get our ducks in a row.
Okay, so I've made an appointment with Jamie and Leigh, my dual HR business partners, together.
HR team.
Yeah.
I always say thank you.
You walked exactly right into what I wanted to hear.
Okay, good. I was like, thank you for bringing this into my attention,
Good job, Jamie.
or thank you for telling me your concerns.
Because if you're in an auto accident, if your insurance card, I remember I don't know if it still does, but my insurance card on the back was like, don't say anything if you're in an accident, like don't admit liability. Like, and so I'm like, okay. But when people raise that concern, I know, and this often comes from lawyers. And again, I've worked as a management side employment lawyer. You're not wrong that people can absolutely cause liability to the organization. For example, if you say, oh my God, this is bullshit, we will get rid of this person, and then you don't, like, that makes things worse. You probably would have been better just sitting there and nodding and like shooing them out of your office at that point, I guess. But people say, well, if you say I'm sorry, that admits liability. No, it does not. No, it does not. Or thank you. Like, thank you. And there's ways you can say these that have, like, just bring a human lens to it. And it's just knowing, if that person has come to you, they likely have had this in their mind for days, weeks, long, and they've stewed on, and they're so afraid that you're not going to believe them. Nothing's going to happen. And so that's, as I've had investigations or reviews, and that's the one thing I think that can put people's minds at ease.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the empathy, right? I love that.
Well, thank you for trusting me with telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
What about, so if you start talking to people and they're like, okay, go talk to these, let me give you a list of 70 other people within the plant. You should go ahead and probably talk to everyone. And I, especially as a junior lawyer, I once had that word, like, these people are like, talk to every person. And I'm like, I mean, I need to meet my billable hours. And like, I had never had the training until later, when I actually had a partner that talked to me through how to not push back, but like have a sieve of who you need to talk to, who you don't. And then, like, so often you should have people that you can speak to as like thought partners of like, how do you structure the investigation? And if they're like, go talk to everybody, do you just do that because you're so afraid if you don't and it doesn't go their way? Then
hell no. I ain't got time for that. Well, I want to know the key players, right? So if this is a complaint, I want to know, one, was this a one-time thing? Like, was something said in the vicinity that was there people that also witnessed this? So I want to talk to them. Is there a history of this? I want to talk to the people that also, obviously depending on the concern. I want to speak to other people who maybe also had this concern, but didn't voice it to HR, but maybe voiced it to this coworker that is now coming to me. So I want to know who's the closest and or has witnessed it. That's who I want to speak to. I think it's also sometimes important. I'm just thinking back on some of the investigations. I sometimes like to get neutral parties too, to kind of get like, what's your take on this type, or you saw the fist fight break out, or, who was the instigator, neutral parties I think are also important to kind of throw in there as well, to kind of get a different perspective.
Yeah. Not every investigation or concern, but a lot of them, when I would get kind of that laundry list, right, of people to talk to, I've definitely had that where there's like 50 people on there. My question was always, well, who was there? Right. Like, so I would like delineate or, be like, okay, these were the actual witnesses, potential witnesses, these ones here. Okay. And these are what? Character witnesses for you. Okay. And these are what? People in your department that may have had similar, so like I would kind of write those out that way, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes people would use a certain event, a certain concern to do a pile-on. Right. They will have years of issues and complaints, right? And, whatever experiences, and they want to bring it all in. And it's like, okay, well, we're focused on this one event right here. So let's focus on this one event right here, right? At least to start, I got to start somewhere. This is the potential hostile work environment event that you're claiming or whatever happened. Like, let's focus on this one thing, because people will use that as an opportunity. Just, okay, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at this shit. shit, this guy needs fucking fired. So I'm just going to pile on.
They're like, okay, I'm done with this shit. I can't take it anymore. And it's just like,
yeah, they're fed up, right?
Well, it's like we were flying on a very well-known Atlanta-based airline about 20 years ago. And we were sitting out when we landed for about an hour before we got to the gate. There was not a gate available. And my husband, Dan, wrote a letter about this, and his first draft was, I was reading this, and then it kind of had related topics. All of a sudden, we started talking about the frequent flyer program and a lot of feedback. So to Leigh's point, I think about that letter often because it's like an employment investigation. But
that's funny.
A lot of people on social media in particular will say, like, never trust HR, never go to HR. And I'll say my caution to this is, and this is a bit of a uniquely American perspective, but in the US, there are certain things that if you get to a point, especially for things like harassment, and you're going to bring a legal lawsuit, which there is a huge floor ceiling, whatever it is, to bring legal claims of that. You will be shocked when you look at what happens in the workplace that is not deemed to be legally sexual harassment, depending on where you are in the case law. And it's like the worst environment, but it's like a summary judgment for the employer. And so just knowing that. But if when you do otherwise have a legal claim, if you haven't exhausted your internal channels, meaning your organization has a policy and it said, go to this person, and you never went to that person, you followed a TikToker that told you not to trust people, and then that can create ultimate issues. On the flip side, also organizations that have these policies, you have to follow through with them. That's why things like having investigations, that if you have this policy, all fine and good, you've paid someone for it, but then like people bring complaints and nothing ever happens, like you likewise are going to create real issues for themselves. And I don't want this to become a legal thing, but those are things to know, that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so I do think, no matter what, for organizations, that when you have questions about these, your local employment counsel often can be that playwright for you, and tell you things to know and keep in mind, even if you're running that internally. But so for you all, one complaint you get a lot is people saying, well, either I did this and I never heard back, so that's one issue, I guess. And then the other is, I did this and nothing happened to the person, or then they iced me out, things like that. What do you all think?
So the reality is that it's not illegal to be an asshole, right? And that's what you're getting at, Ashley, right? And I've told that to people. It's not illegal to be a creep. It's not illegal to be an asshole. And so sometimes when you're looking at something, there may not be grounds. Yes, that thing occurred, but it didn't breach. It didn't break a rule. It didn't, you all just may not get along. And sometimes that happens, which is unfortunate. Maybe counseling or coaching is the solution. Maybe there are actions that are being taken that honestly are none of your business, person that made the concern, because now we're talking about someone else's employment. And so you don't need to know all the intricacies and all of this, but I'm always going to follow up as best practice to let you know that here is what I found high level, right? And I am taking action. We are taking action. Like something is happening. It has been closed. It has been resolved. Like whatever you can communicate based on whatever the issue is, right? Because it's all gray. But follow up with something. Never leave anyone hanging. And timeliness of these things is so critically important. Like you may have some crazy financial and concern or investigation that could take however long. Okay, fine. But most could be done in a couple of weeks, and they should be just please, try and shift, shift priorities, focus, and do the due diligence, see it through and absolutely follow up, because in the absence of that information, you see people are going to fill in the absolute worst. They're going to assume nothing happened. And they're going to say it like nothing happened, even though you did all that work and a whole shit ton of stuff happened and is happening and will continue to happen, but no one knows that. It's just, hey, nothing happened, So it's important to close these out and be open about it.
I also like to remind people that I cannot disclose if there was disciplinary action, because a lot of people will in my lifetime of HR, well, did they get written up? Well, I can't tell you that. You know what I mean? There was action taken, and that's what I can tell you. This is confidential, and that is what you need to know.
Well, and I think this is where I think having employment counsel can be helpful on these, because there's times you can tell somebody, but what you can also say in that lens is to say to people, and this is what often you may get this from the witnesses as well, that are like, am I going to find out? Are you going to follow up with me? And say, well, I will, follow. Like, if we have any questions, ultimately, you may not know, you may not, just out of the confidentiality of the situation. We're just trying to understand, what happened, and we don't want to escalate this beyond anything else. If there's something that you need to know, we will definitely let you know. We just want you to know we don't communicate with you further. We appreciate you, we appreciate you talking these things. We're just like, if anyone's having concerns, we want to keep it as limited as possible. And people tend to, that tends to make sense. When you have that person who's raised that concern and they don't hearing things like, I can't tell you, or it's like it can feel hard. And so one way, I had someone I've adopted this. I didn't come up with this, but the way she said it, she'd say, whatever the consequences, sometimes they're visible and sometimes they're invisible. Visible can be things like losing a job. There are a lot of invisible things that you may not see, but we have taken actions to make sure that this does not happen again. And I want you to know, you have our support. And so that visible, invisible, I've used it. It's tended to resonate with people. And so that's one that can put it in that language that still lets the person know, like, I got you.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Look at you knowing your shit.
Well, this is an area that I have had, especially in the legal world. But I'll tell you, legal investigations are also again, there's a reason I don't like lawyers doing that. Nobody wants to talk to a lawyer. It feels super formal.
They don't.
And often it's I do think it's an area where people generally need some more training. So I do have a toolkit on investigations for organizations.
Plug.
There we go. But it's. I just think it's having that human lens, but that's, I think, from the start to the finish, thanking the person that brought them. And even at times, we will get that also comment on social media. If someone doesn't bring it in good faith, that can happen. But if you have your own playbook of following these, generally you'll be okay.
Yeah, no one wants to meet with legal. That is probably the scariest, way scarier than HR. But I think my favorite part about this episode, Ashley, is you talking about giving the advice on not taking random TikToker attorney advice on not sharing your concern with your organization. Because you can't trust HR. Bullshit. Everyone has jobs in an organization. HR has a job in the organization. It is typically the one that receives a concern and does an investigation. Bring me what's bothering you. Allow me the opportunity to keep you and the organization safe. I can't do anything if I don't know about it. I just fucking can't. Give me the opportunity to fail you and get it on the record that I failed you. Duh. That's going to make a stronger case. Instead, if you don't share anything, it wasn't that big a deal to you. That's what that shows to me, right? And that's what employment counsel will say too, to you. I think you alluded to that, Ashley. You go to external employment counsel, they're going to be like, you never raised this concern. You never gave anyone a chance to help you. You've just been suffering this whole time. And now what? You want them to pay you out for what? How? It doesn't work like that. Please give us an opportunity to help keep you safe and advocate for you. We are not your counsel. Guess what? I'm not counsel for the business either. But we all work for the same organization. If you have an issue, it's also your job to protect the organization and company as well as yourself. That's what's crazy. People are like, HR is just there to protect the business. Every single employee is literally paid to protect the business. So the business stays in business. Every single employee, not just HR. I didn't have a class on that bullshit. Are you kidding me? Come on. No, you're making that assumption. It kills me. It's your job too.
And I think that's what's so frustrating, because obviously we are on the socials and we're trying to dispel this HR myth, right? But then you see someone pop up in your algorithm, similar to Ashley sent us one just the other day, and she was spewing hate about HR. Never go to HR, just go directly to your lawyer. And exactly what you said, Leigh. But you know what's funny is I got in those comments because I couldn't help myself. And I asked her, I said, what are you? She was the VP of Ops, never worked one day of an HR.
Please.
So
Of course.
why I say that is because I know that maybe your Uncle Bob got fucked over, down at the plant or wherever he worked because he showed his penis and then he got fired. And that sucks.
Uncle Bob is a pervert, FYI. Okay.
Yeah, that sucks for Bob. But the VP of Ops preaching about a job that she's never worked a day in her life is insanely frustrating for us HR content creators when we're trying to actually, this podcast is the reason we have it is so that we're able to tell you what we do in HR and why we do it, and that we are too employees of the company.
I mean, that's where we, in as organizations, hear these things, and you want your HR to know what to do. So have your ducks in a row to have a good.
Yeah.
Finally.
Have you used Shopify? Shopify is the global commerce platform that can help you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real life store stage, to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage, Shopify's there to help you grow. And I know that firsthand because as a digital creator, I have some swag and merch. And guess what? It was Shopify that helped me put it out there. That's right. I've got your back with a t-shirt that says, not a question, but a quick comment. And Shopify has my back to help get that t-shirt directly to you. Shopify gives me everything I need to take control of my business and take it to the next level. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/HRBesties, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/HRBesties now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/HRBesties.
Calling all pet parents, Chewy has everything to keep your pet happy and healthy. They offer over 100,000 products from top brands shipped directly to your door in 1 to 2 days. From food to beds, they've got it covered for all dogs, cats, birds, fish, reptiles, and more. For health, Chewy provides pet prescriptions, insurance, telehealth vet visits, and is launching vet clinics nationwide. With their auto ship feature, you'll never run out of essentials, and you can adjust or cancel anytime. So some of you may know that I have a bunch of animals. 3 dogs, 2 cats, 3 fish, and a turtle, to be exact. I've set up reoccurring shipments of all my essentials we need, so I'm never running out, and I can change or cancel my auto ship order at any time. It's super convenient and one less thing I have to worry about. Plus, Chewy's 24/7 customer service and 100% satisfaction guarantee ensure you're always covered. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 off your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com/HRBesties. That's chewy.com/HRBesties to save $20 off your first order with free shipping. Chewy.com/HRBesties. Minimum purchase required, new customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
Oh gosh, love it. Shall we shift to questions and comments? What do we think?
I have a comment. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but when I started the episode by talking about for HR, why it can be hard is you have a full plate, someone's got a complaint. But the best is if the complaint is something like, this person's been cooking fish in the kitchen. And you're like, you know what? Okay, that is a good point. You can deal with it swiftly. And you're like,
yes.
Because you have this sense of like this between when you hear like a complaint or you got a concern? I will review your concern. But like when you know it's going to be an easy one and like and you're like, I can make this right. It's like Jamie buying the microwave. I'm going to also buy some new microwaves, just like Jamie did for her organization. She talked about previously because we got to get the fish sent out. But sometimes it was nice nice when you're like, I can actually resolve this on my own, and I will.
Yeah, in less than like a 24-hour period of time. Yeah,
without getting witnesses. Like, you can just yell loudly. Does anybody else want Bob to stop cooking this kitchen? I approved. Thank you. Investigation complete.
Right. Which is probably 80%, I'd say, of concerns, right? It's rare, really, to have big investigations, maybe 90% even. It's typically just people unable to have a conversation with one another. That's what I see a lot, you know?
And this is why also, like, I've worked with some people I've really found, like, inspirational. I know it sounds corny, but like have really good approaches. And so even as strictly as a lawyer, when I wasn't in HR, I had a senior colleague who would have so many conversations to empower someone to have the conversation on their own and handle it on their own. So we never got involved because that adds that layer. And so that is another thing that you can really do often, is helping someone help themselves and be their playwright.
Let them learn. Jamie, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, thinking back on some of the wild investigations that I've done and truly being like the FBI. And that, I think that's why I'm so good now at like finding shit on people on like social media and stuff. Like you leave a shitty comment on me, I'm like Ashley, I'm going deep because I know how. I have the skills, motherfuckers.
Right.
Honey badger.
Y'all are nuts. You two are nuts.
I got my ducks in a row, bitch.
We watched Back to the Future as a family. And, you know, Michael J. Fox's, whatever his character's name is has the trigger if someone calls him a chicken. And I think that's mine and Jamie's trigger. Yeah. If someone is like, Jamie's is if someone's mean to your friend, my friend. Mine is also like misinformation. If you are wrong and rude about it, then I will, like I made the video about Australia. And someone's like, but I talked about work-life balance in Australia. And someone from the U.S.'s response was to write a comment saying, what great innovations has Australia come up with the last few decades? And I made a video on exactly that, the numerous innovations they've made. So Hemsworth brothers and beyond. Anyway.
Oh, I know. That's a good one. Y'all are crazy. Oh, man. They do go deep, though. They go deep. I'm grateful for them because I didn't have anyone in my life like that.
Who's crazy?
Level of cray. Yes, not with like the internet searching or information seek out or, you know what I mean?
Helpful crazy.
Totally helpful. Crazy in a precious way, like endearing way. I mean it lovingly.
Yeah. Like I'm searching for your mugshot to send to your employer.
I call it crazy with an I. Crazy with an I because it's like cute crazy.
Yes. Oh. I love that. Oh, it is like crazy with an I. Oh. Totally. Oh, gosh. Well, not a question, but a quick comment from me, which is just a short story, right? So long story short, or short story long, the way I tell stories. We have people give us feedback that, oh, gosh, thank you for your contents. And, you know, I learn a lot and gosh, you all really know your shit and all of this, you know. Well, be mindful that, you know, we've all had like 20 years in the business, right? And so all that shit we know that helps our credibility is through actual experience. But none of us just, you know, started out knowing all this shit, right? And so just quick example, when it comes to investigations, I'll never forget, I was in my first like full-time corporate job and I was working labor relations. And so part of my job was to investigate the grievances that would come in. And in part of my grievance investigation, I had to have a meeting with a steward and an employee who was represented. And then it's just me.
And this is in a union environment. For those that don't know what that means, this
correct.
Yep.
Hardcore. Yeah. Union represented employee. And per the book, right? Per the contract, it was time to let this person go. And this grown man sat across from me and was weeping because lightning had struck his house. His house like blew up. And that's why he missed like his 10th day of work or whatever, no call, no show sort of situation that he was in. He was at step 7. Holy shit, whatever, right? So many steps. And he cried and he cried and he cried and he groveled, literally begged me not to terminate him and give him one more chance, which would have been a step outside contractual obligation. And I allowed it. And instantly, the tears kind of stop. But, he's collecting himself. And I get up and I say, well, I'm going to go get the papers drafted. Let me get them off the printer, whatever I said. And I walked out. Well, when I turned and looked, I saw him give his steward a high five. And I am so thankful for that moment having occurred so early in my career.